everyone, welcome to Natural Piano.
Hi guys, we wanted to do a video about 10 benefits of a natural home birth. Just because we did the video of the disadvantages of birthing in a hospital, we wanted to say kind of why we chose to do a home birth this time around, since we did do a hospital birth with our first daughter. I started looking at, when we started looking into like a more natural lifestyle, a common theme, because I was looking on blogs and stuff, and a common thing that was on a lot of them was that they chose to do home births. It wasn't necessarily the route that, like the same things that we're doing, but it gave me the idea of a home birth, which I had never even thought of before, and Korey hadn't either at all. And so the more that I read about it, the more, people talked about how it was so comforting to be in their own home and just like talking about their experiences, and I thought it sounded so much better than being in a hospital setting doing a birth. So the number one benefit of birthing at home is that you get to have immediate bonding with your baby, and that includes the mother and the father, or the mother and the other partner. So in the hospital, you don't have that immediate bonding, but when you're at home, you or your partner can choose to catch the baby. You don't have anybody else there really to catch them. You can also do skin to skin right away, which also you can do nursing right away. You can also, when you're doing a natural birth, you're not using the drugs that really inhibits the bonding between the mom and the baby, and also the father and the baby too, but really it's the mom, because when she's on the drugs, then the baby is as well. The drugs get to the baby and they don't have that bond. They're not able to, because really they're both drugged. So when you're at home and you're doing it naturally, you don't have to worry about the drugs. Some people still choose to have certain ones, like homeopathic ones and stuff. We're not doing that at all. And I still think those would inhibit the bonding, but just to a lesser degree than the ones that they have in the hospital. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, and also the bonding is so important, because that's the initial, especially initially, it's the first connection that baby is making physically with anything in this world, and you want it to be with you, both of the parents, or the guiders of the child, and it creates a much stronger connection that carries on throughout the whole entire life of it, that when you're in a hospital is not nearly as significant as what you're able to do at home with it. I mean, you can spend literally as much time as you want bonding initially.
Right, and nobody's interfering or taking the baby to do things and stuff like that. You just get to do it on your own time. Number 2 is the mom's in a comfortable, stress-free environment. And I think that was one of the main ones that I liked about home birthing when I first started looking into it, because I learned that the more stress that the mom's body is under, the harder it is for her to birth naturally, because naturally our bodies, when you look at nature, when like say a lion is about to give birth, and she senses that there's danger around, I guess that's a bad example, a zebra, if she's about to give birth and she senses danger is around, her body will stop the natural birthing process until she moves to a different area where she feels safe and comfortable enough to birth her baby. And that's one thing in a hospital, is it's so unfamiliar surroundings, and it's just not comfortable. You know, your home is comforting to you. Everything, it's all your stuff around you. You can make it however you want. You know, you can have the lights how you want. You can light candles. You can do whatever you want to. And that puts the mom in a state of comfort and ease so that her body is able to not be tense and just have like a faster, simpler, easier labor. That's one of the reasons in hospitals why a lot of moms have to, or you know, their births are stalled, or they get like this lull in they're having really strong contractions at home, and then they get to the hospital and their contractions start slowing down, and then it could be hours until they actually deliver. And that's one of the reasons, is because they're in this environment where they just don't feel comfortable. All these strangers are around them, and it's just not comfortable to them. You have anything? The third one is that if you have other children, they can be involved. And I think that it's really important for kids to see the natural birthing process, because we have this fear that surrounds birth in our society, and if more kids were able to experience it in a natural way, especially just at any age of their life, really, if the family feels comfortable with that, I think it's a really great experience for them to see that. And in the hospital, they're definitely not allowed in the room while the mom is laboring or when she is pushing and having the baby, and especially not if she has a C-section. And I'm not sure, I know it's over a certain age, the kids are allowed to come in and see the baby after, but I know, I'm not sure what the age is, but anywhere under that, they're not even allowed to see the baby the whole entire time that they're in the hospital due to, you know, infection or bringing in illnesses and stuff like that, which is really dumb when you think about it, because you're in a hospital where sick people are anyways. But at home, the kids are allowed to be a part of the whole entire experience if you choose to do that, which we're allowing our daughter. I mean, we talked about it with her, and we have watched, I like watching birthing videos and everything. So, and I told her, you know, just how things might go or could go as far as, you know, like noises I would be making or something like that, just so she's more comfortable with it. But I really don't think that it's going to be an issue, and I don't think it is an issue for kids, because birth is a natural thing, and we make it into something that it's not, so that it's like confusing to them, especially in a hospital where kids know it as where, you know, sick people are. If something happens, that's where you go. That's not where you go to have a baby, because the mom isn't sick, she's having a baby.
And a lot of kids even remember their own birthing when they're still young. They just don't know how to express it or bring it up. And so it is a completely natural thing to them, because they know it from a first-hand experience. But it also goes along with the bonding. Your children are part of your immediate family, and your immediate family needs to have a strong bond with each other to be a whole, to be whole and full together. And that really allows you to when you're doing a home birth, because your children can participate as much as they want to.
Right, and we don't see her as like a hindrance being there, and I wouldn't see it either if she was younger, because I think, well, kids are very smart. They're much smarter than we give them credit for, and they have a certain intuition. And I know in a lot of like birthing stories that I have read and videos that I've seen, even like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, where they're not, like, our daughter's going to be sick, so she's older, but when they're younger, they have an intuition, and they know when things are going on, so they're not going to be like an inconvenience to the mom that's in labor. A lot of moms say that their, like 3-year-old will come up to them while they're having a contraction or something and rub their back without them even saying anything. So I think kids have a connection to their moms too, and they know everything that's going on. So number 4 is that the mom can move around as she desires. In the hospital, when you get there, you're immediately hooked up to IVs and monitors, and you're not allowed to move around anywhere. And this also hinders the natural birthing process as well, because our bodies, naturally when a mom is in labor, she wants to move around because the baby is trying to get into position in order to come out. So she wants to move around, she wants to sway her hips, anything like that, even going to take a warm shower to help the contractions, or go in a birthing tub or something like that. And in some birthing centers that's allowed, but in hospitals it is not. And when you're at home, you can just move around freely however you want to, whatever feels comfortable for you. You're not confined to one position and have to stay there the whole entire time, which is inhibiting your labor and prolonging the process even more. Do you have anything for them?
Mm-hmm.
Number 5 is that you get to pick your birthing position. And if you actually look into giving birth while you're on your back, it tilts your pelvis at a certain angle, which makes it much harder for the baby to come out. That's not a natural birthing position that most moms would choose if they were able to choose the position that they want to birth in. A lot of moms go on their hands and knees, or they squat naturally. Very rarely moms will say that it's comfortable to lay on your back. You're generally confined to your back in the hospital because you're given the epidural, so you can't move in any position anyway because you can't feel from the waist down. So you have to lay on your back and give birth that way. But it's actually a much gentler bringing the baby into the world when you can choose a different position rather than being on your flat back and trying to push the baby out that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it doesn't even make sense why you would lay flat on your back to give birth, because we have a force that brings everything down here, and it would make much more sense to use the natural force that brings everything down to help bring the baby out than to try to literally push it out sideways.
Yes. And another thing that I was thinking about that I just mentioned to him the other day was throughout the mom's almost whole entire pregnancy, especially her 2nd and 3rd trimesters, they tell you not to lay on your back, not to sleep on your back, that you should be laying on your side or something. And so I was telling him it doesn't even make sense that when you're doing the most important thing of this whole entire process, why they would have you lay on your back then. It just doesn't make any sense. Number 6 is that you can eat and drink whatever you want to, whenever you want to. In the hospital, they won't give laboring moms any food, and she gets the IV, and then that's about it, because they don't want the mom throwing up, especially if she's getting the medications and stuff like that. And at home, I know a lot of moms say that they don't have a really big appetite, because obviously your body is using its energy to birth the baby, to get ready to birth the baby, so it's not wanting to digest a ton of different foods, but you do need energy. And so, sipping on different things like coconut water, or eating light fruit, things that are easy to digest, that's going to give you the energy to be able to go through and birth the baby, is really beneficial to the mom. Because a lot of moms which is one of the other things that hinders the like the process of the baby being born, is that she runs out of energy, because it does take a lot of energy for your body to go through the whole labor and then birth the baby. But when the mom isn't able to eat or drink as she wants to, she runs out of energy, and then she needs to rest. Her body needs rest in order to be able to continue the process to birth the baby out. So if they're able to eat and drink whatever you want to, like you can at home, I think it makes the birthing process go by faster. So number 7, the 7th benefit is that it is a less chemically filled environment. And we say less because your home is still filled with tons of chemicals generally, if you're living in the society that we're in, due to paints, furniture, things like that. But in the hospital, they say it's a sterile environment, but they make it sterile by using chemicals. And actually the baby needs to be, if you're eating the right way and treating your body right, the baby will be born with a strong immune system, especially if you leave the cord attached. And so when they're entering this world, they already have a strong immune system. They should have a strong immune system. But in the hospital, they actually have, due to like all the processes of everything that they do, they're introduced to things that they shouldn't be, and it weakens their immune system. Compared to at home, where the mom has been and throughout the whole pregnancy, and it's just an environment that they're going to be used to anyway. So there's no problems with, like chemicals and sterilization and things like that.
Right, because bacteria isn't bad for us at all. We actually all have natural bacteria inside of us, which is how we digest what we eat. But when we're in our homes, no matter where you live, your home to you is your home because the bacteria that is in it is natural to you. You ingest it every day. You ingest the dust every day and everything that is in it, whether you realize it or not. And because of that, the baby is completely used to the environment of your home and their home as well. And that's why it is much better to birth where you normally are than a foreign place, because in that foreign place there's going to be foreign things that they've never been introduced to during the 9 months that they were inside of you.
Right. The 8th benefit is that you can birth the placenta naturally. You can go through the 3rd stage of labor in your own time. So depending on the woman and just how her body is and what she has consumed throughout her pregnancy and things like that, usually it takes between 1 to 2 hours or it can take 1 to 2 hours to naturally birth the placenta. And that's without pushing on the mom's stomach, without pulling on the cord, without giving a dose of Pitocin that will make her uterus contract to expel the placenta, which is a very common thing that they do in the hospital. That is actually very harmful and causes hemorrhaging to a lot of moms, because just like the baby is supposed to be born naturally, your placenta is too, and your body knows how to birth the placenta. It knows that there's no longer a need for it inside your body, and it will detach from the wall of your uterus, and so that it can be birthed through the canal shortly after the baby's born. In the hospital, most doctors will not wait for that process to happen, and it has to happen before they leave the room so that they can make sure that the whole placenta is there and so that pieces aren't still inside the mom's uterus. But what happens when they're pulling on the cord and pulling and pushing, trying to get the placenta out, that's when pieces of the placenta will stick in there because it's not ready to come out yet. Your body needs time to adjust. It just birthed the baby, so it needs time to also go through and birth the placenta as well. So at home, you know, you can choose to relax, and some people will still cut the cord of the baby while the placenta is still in the mom, but you should never, there's never a reason to push or pull on the cord to get the placenta out. That's a very common misconception, that the placenta has to be out right away, or that it's really bad if it's in you for too long. And it's actually very natural for it to be in for up to 2 hours after you birth the baby. Some people it won't take nearly that long, but it is normal for it to be in there for that long. And when your body's able to birth it without any kind of intervention, then the mom won't have the hemorrhaging, and it's a much gentler process on her body in general. You can also choose, along with that one, you can choose to do delayed cord clamping, which you can do in the hospital. You just have to make sure that you tell them, because it's very standard protocol for them to clamp the cord immediately after the baby's born. And some people I have read even have it in their birthing plan in the hospital that they want to do delayed cord clamping, and they will still clamp the cord immediately. So at home, you don't have to worry about somebody clamping the cord or cutting the cord. You don't have to worry about telling people like, no, don't do that, we're doing it this way. You can just go with the flow of things, with the natural flow of things, and do everything in your own time. There's no rush to cut the cord or even cut it at all, like we're having a lotus birth, which is very uncommon. I've never heard of anybody be able to do it in the United States anyway, have a lotus birth, because they cut the cord. So you're able to have that option at home of doing whatever you want with the cord and with the placenta and the baby. Number 9 is that nobody will use pacifiers, bottles, supplementing formula, vaccines, baths, anything like that when you're at home. So a lot of those things, if you're into more the natural way of doing things, most people know that all those interventions are really harmful to the baby, and especially for the bonding as well, because they cut off that connection between, like the mom and the baby and the dad and the baby. When I had our daughter, she was given a pacifier right away, without me even saying anything. I wouldn't have said no anyway at the time, because I just thought it was the norm to use pacifiers to get them to stop crying, and I wouldn't have even thought twice about it. But it was just something that I thought about later that nobody asked, like, do you want to give her a pacifier or do you not want to? And also with the bottle too, they decided to supplement formula with her while she was in the nursery. And then they would bring her in every so often to breastfeed with me. And that was something that they didn't ask either. They told me that they supplemented a bottle, and they asked me if I wanted to keep supplementing, and I asked why, and they said because I needed to recover, and it was also to get her birth weight up, because they tell you that, like the baby loses weight within the first 2 to 3 days. They drop under their birth weight and then they'll go back up very quickly, and they just tell you that it's just the natural thing that happens because the baby's shocked, coming into this world, and it's different for them. So they lose that weight and then they'll gain it back. Which I don't believe is true that happens. I think that happens for babies born in an unnatural way. But they use that as an excuse to give the baby supplementation for the formula to get the extra calories and stuff in, which is completely unnecessary, and it's very confusing to the baby to have all these different things in their mouth. It really hinders the nursing experience between the mom and the baby, because the baby has this pacifier in its mouth, and then it has, you know, the mom's nipple in its mouth, and then it has this different nipple from a bottle in its mouth. So it's very confusing to the baby, and it's very harmful and unnecessary too. And like I said, with the breastfeeding, you know, we're not supposed to be, when the baby cries, it doesn't mean that you pop a pacifier and the baby is crying to tell you that it wants something to, and it's usually to eat. We shouldn't be making our own schedules for the baby, like when to eat, which in the hospital, it's very common for the baby to cry and them to put the pacifier in, or for them to tell you, like, here's some bottles for you to feed them if you don't feel like breastfeeding, or if you feel like they need that supplementation, which they completely don't.
Right, and the other thing with all the things that go along with that is they're all full of chemicals. The only thing that's safe to put in the baby's mouth is the mom's nipple. Anything else is full of chemicals, dyes, and all kinds of things that it affects the baby in the inside. It definitely does.
Right. The stuff that they're like putting, there are like things like natural rubber pacifiers and things like that, which when we were looking into being, you know, like living more naturally, I was looking into those, and I was going to get those before I even got pregnant, until I learned that it disturbs the breastfeeding between, like, because it's nipple confusion to them. So that's what we were going to use. So there are natural options. Unfortunately, they don't use any of that in the hospital at all. If you look at what they use, it's the worst things, really, that they have out there.
Right, and that's also why babies have a problem latching onto the mom, is because they're used to putting these other weird things in their mouth and have trouble when they get a nipple. I was going to say something else. I forgot.
Well, with the chemicals, like he was saying, with the pacifiers, and the formula is filled with really bad things that you wouldn't even want to put in your own body, let alone your newborn baby's body. And that only takes, it's all listed on the internet. It only takes looking up a couple ingredients on there to know that that is not good nutrition to be giving your newborn baby. But with like the vaccinations, people can choose to not have the vaccinations, but it's very heavily pressed on them, and you feel like you're almost like
they make you feel like you're going to kill your baby if you don't vaccinate them.
Even if you, like, I chose to, my daughter did get a couple vaccinations, I'm not even sure which ones, while she was in the hospital, and then they asked me if I wanted to do the other ones or if I could wait until she was 6 weeks. And even at that point, I felt like she already had enough, so I said that I wanted to wait. And the nurse that told me that I could wait, she was fine with that. But then, you know, all different nurses come in because their shift change all the time. And the other two that were coming in, they kept trying to get me to get the other vaccinations for her. And I think it's just they weren't trying to imply something on me. Like, I don't think they obviously knew that vaccinations are as bad as they really are, but it's their job. But she was really, both of them kept saying that it's just so much easier to just do it all here, and while the baby's really young, and she'll cry more when she's older, and we might as well just do it all here, and blah, blah, blah. And I kept saying no, but then, you know, she got it 6 weeks later. Anyway, but you're very, you know, you're made to feel like that you have to do all these things. And if you don't, that you're like a bad parent, or that you're going to make all these other kids sick, and there's something wrong with you because you're choosing not to do that, when it really is your choice. It is your baby, and it's your choice.
And the other thing, which I was going to say, is when the baby loses weight, it makes no sense that you would supplement with formula, which is all artificial, instead of breast milk, which is 100% fat.
Right.
So to supplement something that's not even purely fat doesn't make any sense to gain weight.
Right. And then with the baths too, it's very it's standard for all newborn babies to get their first bath in the hospital. And I think I talked about this in my other video, that I have pictures of my daughter getting her first bath, and it makes me really sad to look at them now, because you can just tell like how distressed her body is and stuff. And what they're using to give them the bath is filled with chemicals, and it's just the standard like Johnson & Johnson baby wash. That's what they always use. And that's something that you do not want on your baby's skin, let alone around your baby. And also, newborn babies don't even need baths. It's good for them to have the protective coating on their skin. You can obviously like wipe them down, because they will have some blood on them just from coming out, but there's no reason to scrub them down right away when, you know, they're coming into this world. It's called the vernix, I think, protects their immune system, and it protects their skin, because they were just in water for 9 months inside of you, and then they're coming into this environment that's so different to them. So it really protects them. And when you're at home, you can choose when you want to give them a bath, when you feel it's right to give them a bath. You don't have somebody telling you like, okay, we're taking the baby now, so that they can go get their first bath. It's completely unnecessary. And then the 10th one is that your partner is able to be involved way more than in a hospital setting. The role of the other partner in the hospital is pretty much non-existent. And when you're at home, really, that's the person that's there to guide you, you know, like through the whole thing. If you choose to, some women say they choose to birth alone and labor alone, and then some people like the support there. And it just makes sense that if you did want the support there, it would be somebody who helped you create and get into this position in the first place, not somebody that you know, you've never met before. Really, in the hospital, you're not getting support from anyone unless you choose to bring like a doula in or something like that. But the nurses aren't there to support you. They're there to monitor you and check you and make sure everything's going right. So at home, the partner is able to just be the support that they're really meant to be, and not just somebody like in the background waiting to just, you know, do the honorary cutting of the cord. They're really much more involved when they're at home.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, overall, it's just that you get to choose what you want to do and how you want to do it when you're at home. When you're in the hospital, you have to, for the most part, go along with the practices and how everything goes. When you're at home, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about the pressure that is put on you, like in the hospital. And is that it?
Yeah, you have the freedom, which that's what birthing and pregnancy should be about. It's about the mom being empowered, and I mean really the partner too, being empowered to make your own decisions. We're very heavily influenced by the society and telling you that you should do do all of these certain things a certain way. And a lot of people who have home births are still, I mean, it's becoming more popular, but it's still commonly looked down upon in our society, in like developed countries. If you look in other countries where they aren't developed, where they don't have this medical system that we do, it's very common for them to birth wherever they want to, which is usually in their home or outside somewhere even. And if, you know, here they put stories on talking about, you know, like this, I've seen one where this hospital wouldn't accept this lady, so she birthed on her in front of the hospital or something. Like, it was so crazy that she had to do that. Or his grandma was telling me about one that a lady birthed on her front lawn, and while she was going to the hospital, and that's like put out there to like scare people pretty much, that like, oh, you have to make sure that you're in the hospital to birth, like, because she was on her way to the hospital, but she didn't make it there, and she only made it to her front lawn. So it's really looked down upon to birth where you naturally feel comfortable, and people think that it's so unsafe and so crazy. But if you want to look at the statistics and the numbers, which we really don't care about anyways, we go by what we think is common sense and what we feel is right to us. But the statistics for, you know, like things that happen to the mom and baby at home compared to a hospital are actually way higher in a hospital because of all the interventions that are happening to the mom and just being in that stressful environment. It's very common for her to go there and have a C-section because, you know, like everything is stopping the labor. And at home, there's rarely any complications because everything is just, you can just let your body do what it naturally is supposed to do, and you're just going with the flow of everything. So I think that's it for this one.
Yep.
Have a
that's
good
it.
night.